The Toronto Raptors are interested in acquiring multi-time All-Star center Rudy Gobert this offseason. For people that haven't been following, the Utah Jazz have had a bit of an underwhelming year this year. Obviously, they've kept this core of Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, and Quinn Snyder together for a very long time. Haven't had that much success in the playoffs, and after coming off of a heartbreaking series against the LA Clippers last season, they have fallen from their first seed in the Western Conference stature to middle of the pack. And, there's reports about Donovan Mitchell not passing, or stats, not reports, about Donovan Mitchell not passing to Rudy Gobert, and insiders expect that this core will be broken up this offseason. Now, this is where the Toronto Raptors come in. The Toronto Raptors are interested in picking up the pieces and acquiring this French big man, and I'm going to break down the actual reports, the likelihood of this actually happening, and what the Toronto Raptors would have to give up in order to acquire Rudy Gobert. So, without further ado, let's dive straight into it. Hello everybody, Ben Rogers here, the Raptors Digest, reacting to the wild reports coming out about the Raptors acquiring the French big man All-Star. It's coming out, this report's coming out from our guy, I don't know him at all, Mark Stein, on the Rudy Gobert trade rumors, and this is the report saying that, the title says more teams than the Mavs and Raptors will eye the Jazz center. You go on to read the article, and he's essentially saying that his insiders expect that the Raptors and the Mavericks to be the two teams leading the way on the Rudy Gobert charge. And this is interesting. This is a very interesting player to go after because he's polarizing across the league. You look at his stats and, they're very good. They are very good for a starting center in the NBA. 15 points, 15 rebounds, ridiculous rebounding rate, 2 blocks per game, 70% from the field, dunks a lot from around the rim, is known as one of the best defenders in the entire NBA. The advanced stats all go along with this as well. It's been a multi-time All-Star, so what's there not to like? Now, people point to the limited offensive game that he has sort of shown. He hasn't developed that much on the offensive end, isn't much of a jump shooter, isn't much of any of that, but we've seen players have a bunch of success, and there's, the Raptors have sort of been interested in these types of guys over the past couple years. Obviously, we've got Precious Achiuwa now as, our future big man, the guy that we're sort of riding on and hoping develops really well. We re-signed Khem Birch last season. Chris Boucher is a guy I know a lot of Raptors fans are hoping we bring back. And we've kind of gone this route of the 6'9" big man, switchable basketball. What can we do? But the Raptors have always poked their nose into these very big athletic centers. You know that the amount of times that Masai Ujiri has sort of dabbled the name in these long, wiry, athletic guys, we can tell that they're interested, and especially last offseason when the Raptors made a hard push after Jarrett Allen, who ended up becoming an All-Star this year. We're willing to overpay for the guy. Clearly wouldn't have been an overpay at this point, given how well he's performed for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but Rudy Gobert's Jarrett Allen, just better. That's the only real way to put it. He's a better defender. He can finish around the rim pretty well at the same rate. But, the defensive versatility, the IQ from Rudy Gobert, he would be a pleasant addition to this squad. Even though he's not going to space the floor and shoot 44% from 3 like Precious Achiuwa has been following the All-Star break. But the one thing that sort of gets under people's skin about Rudy Gobert is, one, you look at him in the playoffs last year. I broke it down in the intro. The Utah Jazz were kind of exposed by the LA Clippers without Kawhi Leonard in the last 2 games because Ty Lue, who notoriously cooked up some schemes against the Toronto Raptors during the LeBronto days, but they kind of schemed and got Rudy Gobert out of his natural position, out of being a rim protector, and 5-out offense really ended up killing this guy. So that's one sort of factor that people point to. Could he get played off the court? Obviously, he's a defensive big man. You want him to be able to play defense against whoever's out there. And the second point is he is under a massive, massive contract. One of the biggest contracts in NBA history. And I'll pull it up on the screen here now. You can see it. It runs all the way to 2026. Now, he's not an old guy by any means, but you're going to be paying him 35, 38, 41, 43, $46 million up until the year 2026. So some people might look at that as, okay, you're keeping a star center around for a very long time. Positive. Sure, if you want to keep him on the squad. But you are making a significant commitment to this guy if you are trading for him. We've seen how these albatross contracts can come back to bite different teams. The LA Lakers right now with Russell Westbrook. when John Wall's barely played over the past 2 seasons. Rudy Gobert hasn't dealt with injury issues, but if he starts to sort of wane as obviously a guy that's defensive, known for defensive guys usually rely on their athleticism a bit, even though I'd argue that his verticality, his movement, his long arms, his strength, that's sort of what he gets by on defense rather than just pure, jumping in the air and Serge blocking shots down in the paint. I think he'll be fine, but that is a question mark you have to bring in. And do you want to keep this guy around long term? And, it feels like he's been in the league for a very long time. 29 years old is not that old for an NBA player, and I think the contract isn't something that should scare a lot of Raptors fans, given the fact that we're being reportedly interested in this guy. And, if you watch Jarrett Allen play, especially against the Toronto Raptors, it'd be such an addition to have that sort of player out there at the center position. But looking at his contract and looking at all those question marks, and the Utah Jazz inevitably flame out, because I think without the Jazz flaming out, I think they're going to keep this guy clearly. But what would the Toronto Raptors have to give up? Because you're not waiting until 2026 free agency that's not what Mark Stein is reporting in this article. We'd have to make a trade. And the Utah Jazz, I don't know if they give up on both Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert in the same offseason. Centers have very perplexing value across the NBA, right? We never really know what they're going to end up getting traded for, right? A guy like that was an all-star a couple seasons ago, and Andre Drummond, I know, completely different player, but he went from max contract to mid-level guy in, 2 seasons, right? So it'd be interesting to see what Rudy Gobert's value is on the open market, but I'm expecting the price to be high. So obviously, I think Gobert would be a cool fit. We still, if we're playing against a small ball unit in the playoffs, I think we can still run a Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher, whoever we're keeping, whoever we end up are able to keep. Precious is a guy I'd want to keep on this roster, but we'd be able to run that type of lineup given our current roster construction. But having that extra dimension would be huge. Having a guy that you can just throw in there, get in the way of a Giannis, get in the way of a Joel Embiid, throwing him in a Nick Nurse system the same way we got the most out of an old Marc Gasol, could be huge. So that's why I'd like Rudy Gobert. That's the reports. What would we have to give up to get him? Because he's not going to be a free agent until 2026. And unfortunately enough, because Fred VanVleet, I don't think he's on the table. He's an all-star this season. He's our leader. He's our core. I don't think we're trading Fred VanVleet for Rudy Gobert. Pascal Siakam, better than Rudy Gobert, all-NBA guy. You're not trading Pascal Siakam, I don't think, in any of these deals. Scotty Barnes, no chance. Rookie of the Year, going to be an absolute phenom in the future. Starboy, Gary Trent Jr., that's when you sort of get into more realistic trade possibilities. But again, a shooting guard for a center, I don't know. The Raptors like that sort of ISO punch, and you want some of those ISO scores, especially if you're bringing in a Rudy Gobert. Scotty Barnes isn't notoriously the known yet as the greatest three-point shooter. Pascal Siakam can be hit and miss at times. So obviously, Scotty Barnes, even though he played point guard in college, the three has been a position. I've seen a lot of people chatting about trading this guy in the comment section, given his injury past and his up and down season. But I'm thinking OG Anunoby and would have to be in a deal sent back to the Utah Jazz, just given his youth, given his value, if we're going to be acquiring a multi-time All-Star in Rudy Gobert. Now, how do I feel about that? I don't know. Because positionally, thinking about the defense, and OG is obviously a huge part of this Toronto Raptors defensive squad. The Jazz would be interested in a wing defender, right? One of those big wings to guard the guys, those big wings, Kawhis, the Paul Georges, the Lucas out there in the Western Conference. They'd probably want him coming back and makes sense. But thinking of the defense of Fred VanVleet, Gary Trent Jr., Scotty Barnes, Pascal, Rudy Gobert, that's a pretty ferocious defensive lineup there, as we have anyways currently on the roster. But the offense you're giving up there with OG Anunoby, I know the injuries, I know people are frustrated with him right now, but 17 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal and a half, 37% from the three-point line, the perfect complementary glue guy. That's what you're giving up there in OG Anunoby. And I hate being on the fence about takes. People know my love for OG Anunoby. He's one of my favorite Toronto Raptors, one of my favorite guys in the league. But give him trading OG Anunoby would put the ball in Scottie Barnes' hands more often. You up your defense just in the big man position. You sort of still can run those small ball units that we know Nick Nurse loves, but then you also have the added dimension of a mobile, aggressive, one of the best defenders in the NBA, and a guy that can catch lobs, be a lob threat down there in the paint. That would be a very tough decision. I feel like just given open market value, even though I'm still on the fence about whether I'd give up an OG Anunoby guy type level player for a Rudy Gobert. We probably have to give up a pick, probably have to add in a Chris Boucher and maybe a sign and trade. I don't know how that deal would particularly work out, but OG Anunoby and assets would probably be what it would be to give up Rudy Gobert. And I rarely do this, but I'm staying out of this take. My heart tells me no, but the thought of that defensive lineup is trying to sway me. I'm not staying on the fence. I don't know if I'd do this if I was the Toronto Raptors, but Rudy Gobert would be a cool pickup. Would you guys end up trading a package of OG Anunoby with additional pieces for Rudy Gobert? I think we have the package. We have the assets to be able to make something happen. That's what the Utah Jazz want. They're sick of getting bullied by these big wings in the Western Conference, so OG would be a perfect fit down there. But, man, that would hurt my soul, even though it would open up more Scottie Barnes minutes. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. You're the best to make us far. Check out the Instagram, the TikTok, the Twitter, all that cool stuff. Enough of me rambling. You guys are the best. Cheers.